For Module 3, the most challenging idea came from Ziauddin Sardar. And where is the future? He argues that there isn't just one future, but many possible futures. That planners have a moral responsibility to future generations. I've always thought of the future as pliable but somewhat predictable at times. Sardar reframed this when he wrote, "Given human nature, there will be some people who would want to impose their will on others, but it's just that their preferred future is the future of everyone. The future is not immune from colonization." This struck me because it shows that planning was and is never neutral. It embeds values and power dynamics. Whose future gets prioritized matters as much as the plan itself. Another challenging idea came from Dolores Hayden. And what would a non-sexist city be like? Her critique of suburban design as inherently sexist was eye-opening. I had assumed planning was gender neutral, but Hayden argues that zoning and housing design historically reinforced gender inequality, not by accident but intentionally, as a labor control strategy. The passages that stood out to me the most are as follows. From Hayden's passage, the only remedy for this situation is to develop a new paradigm in the home, the neighborhood, and the city. This underscores the need for multi-system reform to redefine women's roles in the home, a point I find meaningful given the progress made towards workplace equality, the ongoing effort required to sustain it. Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone also resonated when he said, "When people say they are lonely, it's not because they lack time, but because they lack connection." That's troubling because decades later, social disconnection has only worsened. Something I see in my own life. A paraphrase quote from Jacob Clifford in his demographic transition model video really stuck with me. The problem isn't that there are too many people. Might be there are too many rich people. That flips the usual narrative about overpopulation and highlights inequality and consumption as the real sustainability issue. And this connects to Heimler's perspective, which stresses that population growth isn't simply a matter of limiting births. It's about investing in education, jobs, and health to shape economic and social resilience. Both Heimler and Clifford argue for context-specific solutions, addressing inequality and resource use, just not raw numbers. Evan Toffler introduces the concept of the modular man, someone defined by short-term, role-specific interactions. Feels real today, especially with technology and post-pandemic life making social interactions shallow and fragmented. The Code Switch video also stood out because it showed how race and cultural identity play out in everyday spaces, revealing another layer of inequity that planning is attempting to address. Finally, in the Future of Humanity Population Trends Decoded by the United Nations, the video explains how demographic changes will shape our future. Understanding these dynamics is essential for designing resilient cities, which is something that is important for me to know moving forward. High fertility countries need investment in education, jobs, and housing, while aging societies require accessible design, healthcare, and immigration strategies. This video reinforced the importance of long-term planning to prepare for demographic shifts rather than reacting to crises. In terms of the connection between materials, the article on suburbanization in the United States after 1945 and the video on the decline of New York City connect by illustrating two sides of the same post-war transportation in American urban history. The suburbanization piece highlights the federal policies, economic incentives, and cultural ideals that fueled mass suburbanization after 1945. Bringing home ownership, perceived safety, and opportunity to millions of white middle-class families. Conversely, the video on the decline of New York City reveals the consequences of that suburban boom for urban centers. Disinvestment, tax-based erosion, job flight, and racial segregation, which collectively produced the fiscal crises and social unrest of the 1970s and 60s in New York City. While suburbanization was framed as fulfilling the urban American dream, it was deeply racialized and exclusionary, leaving behind concentrated poverty in inner cities, an outcome vividly described in New York's decline. Rather than contradicting each other, these readings reinforce a cause and effect relationship. Suburban growth was not an isolated success, but came at the expense of urban stability. This also connects the earlier modules on urban renewal and modernist planning, where top-down decisions prioritize for physical form and mobility, freeways, standardized housing over community well-being. Both cases underscore how policy-driven spatial change reshaped metropolitan America, creating affluence and opportunity for some while deepening inequality and decline for others. When we bring in the Wall Street Journal article titled "College Boom Towns Go Bust," we see a modern parallel. Towns built on a single economic engine, like higher education, are collapsing as enrollment falls. In Macomb, Illinois, enrollment at Western Illinois University dropped by almost 50% since 2010. Once booming streets are empty, dorms are shuttered, and local businesses are closing. Just like the post-war era, demographic and economic shifts ripple through entire communities. The Country Mouse and City Mouse video adds another dimension by contrasting the convenience and diversity of urban life with the simplicity and space of rural living. While lighthearted, it reflects real trade-offs planners must navigate. This is providing access to goods and services versus affordability and quality of life. Then there's George Simmel in the Metropolis of Mental Life. He wrote, the psychological basis of the metropolitan type of individuality consists of the intensification of nervous stimulation, which results from the swift and uninterrupted change of outer and inner stimuli. This captures how city life overwhelms us with constant stimulation, forcing people to develop protective mental filters, what Simmel calls the blasé attitude. The video on Simmel's essay reinforces the meaning of this blasé attitude, describing it further as a defense mechanism to the world around you. When we connect that to Twan's fear in the city, both texts show how urban order coexists with anxiety and overstimulation. Cities often promise opportunity, but they demand emotional detachment and resilience. So what do these lessons mean for the future of cities? First, sustainability is long-term and ethical. Sardaar reminds us that planning requires thinking 100 years ahead, not just five. Second, social infrastructure matters. Putnam and Toffler show that disconnected communities are fragile. Future cities need places for real interaction in parks, third spaces, and inclusive design. Third, equity and design go hand in hand. Hayden demonstrates that sustainable zoning must also address gender roles, care work, and collective services, not just green technology. Fourth, flexibility beats permanence. Toffler's modularity suggests we need housing and mobility systems that can adapt to transient lifestyles without sacrificing community. Finally, the demographic transition model, covered in videos like Jacob Clifford's breakdown and Heimler's, emphasizes that planning must anticipate demographic shifts. For example, cities in stages 2 and 3 regions need strategies for managing rapid urban growth, housing, transportation, and public health. Cities in stage 4 and 5 regions need policies for aging populations, labor shortages, and possibly shrinking tax bases. This challenges the one-size-fits-all approach to planning and shows that sustainability is context-specific. Future cities will need adaptive reuse of infrastructure, mixed-use development, and new economic models to remain resilient as demographics change.